You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Life is not easy. It never was, and it never will be. A good life takes grit. Prioritize who you are and who you want to be, because life isn't fair, and a little grit can make all the difference. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, we got a great show for you today with our friend Chris Spealler. He does he's ex-CrossFit Games athlete.
He's the scary little guy that lifts a lot of weight.
He's a phenomenal fitness. He's just a cool dude too, but he knows what he's talking about when it comes to fitness and strength. He's maximized both his whole life. He's a inspiring dude to follow.
He's been an athlete since he was like 5 years old.
Yeah, college level wrestler and so on. But then the CrossFit Games, he's done some cool stuff. He's not a huge man. He's not very big, but he is strong.
He can lift like twice as much as I can.
Yeah, so just a cool, amazing human being. And on this podcast, we talk about intensity and why it matters. So in fitness, there's your typical, I go to the gym, I lift weights, I run on the treadmill, and I go home. But you never really go to war with yourself, as David Goggins would say. You don't really hit that intensity level. And so Chris is kind of talks about that today and why intensity is important. It's a good discussion. And then on Wednesday, we're putting out a podcast with Lampers on...
It's a Q&A podcast.
It's a Q&A podcast. A lot of you sent in questions while we were on our hunt in Arizona. We addressed that on an earlier show. We got through about half of those questions back in January on our Coos deer hunt. So I was able to sit down with him and ask him all the rest of those questions that got sent in. Not all of them, but a lot of them. We just have a great discussion on just hunting in general. Good Q&A with Ryan Lampers. And then on Thursday, we'll be putting out a show with the guys down at Wild Arrow. It's kind of funny. I keep having these discussions about arrows and FOC, and we end up talking about Valkyrie often. And
every time,
I'm not paid a dime from Valkyrie, by the way. I just have been impressed with
blowing through every single animal you shot at.
And what's interesting is it's just hard to argue. I feel like there's innovative moments that happen in the archery world and in hunting in general. I feel like the new components that are coming out that are mimicking the Valkyrie system, like those that are produced by, which we talked about earlier, Black Eagle has come out with their own outsert and their own extreme FOC components, so you can build a very intense FOC shaft. Victory is coming out with their version of it as well. And I think that based on personal firsthand experience, having shot a bunch of animals and blown through them, I just cannot argue with the system. Now, whether that's, like I've said, whether that's the actual broadhead or whether that's the FOC design or maybe just the small shaft, we get into that discussion with the guys down at Wild Arrow. And Jeremiah Plyer, who owns Wild Arrow, we sit down with him, and we sit down with our buddy Cody from Wild Arrow. Those guys build arrows, build tons of them. They have people just coming through that shop constantly. They're a wealth of information. They tune so many different bows. Another shop that's awesome is No Limits in Denver, Colorado, with Phil Mendoza. And we get into similar discussions with those guys, and then Triple X Archery down in with our buddy Corey Miller. Each of these bow shops, I always kind of try to find in the area I'm in the bow shop of all bow shops with the guys that know what they're talking about, and then to sit down with them and pick their brains on things. And we end up having these 2-3 hour conversations in the back of the bow shop that no one hears.
Yep. We asked Cody, what's the sign of a good bow shop? And he said, when you walk into a place and it doesn't have a fishing aisle, a camping aisle, it's just a bow shop.
Yeah. And so I really feel like it's a wealth of information and you'll enjoy the show. Speaking of which, I want to go over a set of questions, or a question that was sent in by Zachary Pearson. And he writes, I just finished listening to the Arrow podcast with Dallas Haymeyer, and where Dallas and I ended up just going down this road.
The podcast.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of podcasts lately that were never meant to be.
Yeah, which is a natural thing. And anyway, he said, that stuff blows my mind. I live in Kingsville, Texas, and I haven't found a bow shop that is helpful. They mostly push on the newest items they get, and regardless of the quality. Every time I've gone in for more arrows, they no longer carry what I was previously shooting. I've been toying with the idea of building my own. Currently, I've been shooting the Black Eagle Rampage with an expandable broadhead. I haven't found a fixed blade I have been thrilled with. The idea of a heavy, hard-hitting arrow with a fixed broadhead sounds intriguing. How do you recommend getting into that realm? Do you start with a shaft you would normally shoot, or start from scratch with a known FOC weight in mind? I really enjoy your podcast. I'm working on my PhD in wildlife science at Texas A&M University, Kingsville right now, and really I appreciate how you include research to back up some of the topics on your podcast. I hope to get out west someday and chase some grass-fed protein. Thanks, Zach. Well, I think this podcast that we publish on Thursday with the guys from Wild Arrow will dive into some of that. As far as getting started, Black Eagle is a partner of mine and has been since I started Gritty, since I started the whole thing. And the guy, Randy Black Eagle, Randy Kitts, is just an awesome human being. And I've been shooting the Black Eagle X Impact micro diameter shafts. And now that Black Eagle has their own outsert, I think it's cool. I haven't tested it yet. I'm just getting all my stuff, and I'm going to be building new arrows. But the other option is I like Valkyrie, and Brent Hahn can use a Black Eagle X Impact, or he has other shafts that he uses. And Brent will send you just tell him your poundage, what your draw length is, like some of the things, some markers about your bow. Then he can kind of give you recommendations as far as what sort of tip weight you should have and what kind of spine and arrow you should start, what shaft you should start with. I really recommend you call him, or, someplace like, if you can find a good bow shop, you could have that conversation with them. But Brent Hahn is an excellent source, Valkyrie Archery. And you just call Brent up and you tell him what you're trying to do, your heavy FOC. And I think it's, is it $25 or $50?
For the test kit?
Uh-huh.
I don't recall, but Brent's very accessible, and he'll talk to you forever.
Yeah.
Anthony called him and told him, I don't want to buy your system. How can I ghetto rig it? And he was on the phone with him for 2 or 3 hours telling Anthony how he can circumvent it and have his own FOC system.
He can build his own FOC system not using any of Brent's components.
Brent's a cool dude.
Not the best businessman.
No.
But I love to see Brent succeeding, because I think he's pushed a killer product out there, and you spend so much on bows and you invest so much there, and then I see so many guys just leave arrow as like an afterthought. So,
which is the complete opposite of rifle.
If you talk to Brent, he is able to tell you what arrow shafts you should get. He'll send you out a test kit basically with like 3 different shafts that potentially work in different tip weights and different outserts. And then you can just go down to the local bow shop and get your bow tuned, see which one of those arrows shoots the best. And then once you test it and you kind of figure out, okay, this one's shooting bullet holes through paper tuning, everything's dialed, then you can go ahead and build a system that's similar. So you can tell what your spine stiffness should be. You can figure out what arrow tip weight gets you, 20% FOC or higher, and so on, with a phone call, really. So I recommend people start there. If you don't have a local bow shop that's into this stuff. And Cabela's doesn't count. We sent out a newsletter on last Monday, for the Hoyt bow giveaway for everyone who signed up. And the winner has not contacted us. So we were going to give the winner 10 days to get back to us. The winner should have received the email, because we only sent the email to those who confirmed. And so one thing that we didn't know, because this is all new for us, is our first newsletter, is that there's a 2-step process when people sign up, which we actually got rid of.
Yeah, but we didn't know it was there in the first place.
We didn't know it was there. We run a top-notch professional shop here. Anyway, when you signed up, it would the system sent you an email that said, please confirm that you really want to sign up. That sort of thing irritates me. If I sign up, I sign up. I don't want to have to. Anyway, I didn't realize that was there. So we removed that. So if you just go to briancall.com and sign up for the newsletter, you just hit, put your information in and hit sign up, you're done. There is no 2-step process. So if you're not getting the email, or if you didn't get the newsletter, then check your spam. If it's not in there, then just go to briancall.com and sign up again. Mm-hmm. And it's a 1-step thing.
It's on the landing page, briancall.com. Mm-hmm. Scroll down, and it's right there.
And we're going to select another winner
tomorrow, if the winner doesn't get back to us.
Well, not tomorrow, but we'll wait a couple of days to give everyone catching this podcast a chance to get signed up. If you didn't think you got the newsletter this first time around, then go ahead and do that, and then let us know if you were able to sign up or not in email. We'll keep trying to sort it out. I think that's about it. I think you'll enjoy today's podcast. I do want to say that Chris Spealler has Icon Athlete, where he does programming for CrossFit style programming for athletes that want to basically be really fit, but also want functional fitness for the outdoors. And I like his programming on that because it's really focused on people who have a life. And fitness isn't their only life. Like, they get outdoors and do things. And so Icon Athlete's really good for that. And then Chris also has his gruntworkout.com page, where a program where he builds a workout for guys like us that just work out from home, work out from the garage with stuff that we find around the house, from stuff from Home Depot, and with a real strong emphasis on fitness. So for today, and you can just sign up for that for free for 1 month using the code GRUNTMONTH, which is GRNTMONTH. And go to gruntworkout.com and sign up for 1 month free doing that. The link is in our YouTube videos always. Now, today I did almost a 5-mile hike with a 40-pound pack. That's part of, there's a couple of backpack hikes a week because, like Chris said, it's really there for our community, people like us who need functional fitness. And a long ruck hike is right in line with what we do.
You gotta do. So, did you mean to do a 5-mile hike?
Well, I did the hike like 3 miles, and then I ended up coming down and then meeting buddies on the trail and then hiking it again. The steepest part. So anyway, and then folks, we have the Mountain Ops Gritty Film Tour that's coming up. We're going to have 500 seats in each theater. We're going to go to 6 different states. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to have lots of prizes, lots of stuff.
If you're into raffles, come hang out.
But it's more than that. Like a lot of film tours, just to be honest, I feel like the movies haven't blown your socks off. They haven't left you super motivated. It's a good night, and you enjoy the movies, but they're not like awesome. I feel like what we've been able to do here in this lineup that we're going to show is just a cool night with cool film. Get you pumped and jacked and have a good time. And we're going to announce that we're going to have a landing page here real soon where you can go and buy tickets, and we're going to do it throughout the spring, summer. Some of them in conjunction with the same weekends of the Total Archery Challenge. So we're kind of hoping y'all will come and hang out with us and win some cool stuff and have a good time. So look for that. That's coming up. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. We love you. We thank you. Stay gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined today by Chris Spealler, and we're at CrossFit Park City. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good.
You look like you just finished a workout.
I did, just like you. I got that, like,
fresh workout.
Yeah.
Hoarseness.
Yeah. Means you did it right.
Yep. Speaking of doing it right, on today's episode, I wanted to ask you about, because I've been peeping on your Icon podcast lately, and you and Doug got into a topic that interests me. And I had some questions, some follow-up questions around intensity.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know a lot of people, and I fall into this camp as well, that we like to go to the gym, row for, 10, 15 minutes, a few thousand meters.
Yeah.
And then lift some weights,
Yeah, dude.
and
Grow
then,
out.
And then go upstairs and get to work and feel awesome.
Yeah.
And then there's the days where I just go all out and I fall on the ground just dying in a sweat angel on the floor.
Heap of goo.
Where I have a lot of intensity. Same thing when I climb a mountain. I'll throw my backpack on, hike the mountain, and I just kind of go a nice pace and, I'll kill myself. And then there's times with a high level of intensity.
Yep.
My question to you is why intensity matters and what is it exactly and why does it matter?
Yeah. I mean, I guess, when you geek out, the definition depends on where you go. Mm-hmm. But generally, intensity, if you kind of nerd out on it, in CrossFit terms, it's like power output. So more work and less time. So if you, let's say that we use the hike up the mountain example, right? Mm-hmm. You've got the same pack on. I've got the same pack on. We go the same trail. We go the same distance. Say it's a 5-mile ruck and we both have a 30-pound pack. If you finish that in, 60 minutes and I finish that in 50 minutes, I have more intensity as it's more work and less time. So that's really the simplest way to think of it. Mm-hmm. The value behind it is generally you get more bang for your buck. It's just like anything else. You work hard at something, you see a result. You work hard at work, hopefully you see a result. There's benefits. You study hard at school, you get good grades. You work hard in the gym and you see the result. So it really boils down to that. And then efficiency too. For a lot of people, if they are short on time, having a more intense and shorter workout is way more productive than being in the gym for 2 hours.
Okay.
Also just works better.
Can you put some kind of measure on that? Because here I am going, okay, it sucks to go high intensity.
It's hard.
It's hard. There's pain involved. There's discomfort.
Yeah. There's wheezing afterwards.
So when let's take the ruck again, hiking up the mountain, it takes me an hour. Let's say it takes you 40, 45 minutes.
Yep.
You put in more work in a shorter period of time. What is the measurable benefit and is it worth it?
Yeah, the results. Really. That's what it is the benefits, the result. So again, these are it's hard because I kind of go back to all these CrossFit terminologies and definitions, but intensity, they will say in a level 1, intensity is independent variable most commonly associated with maximizing the rate of return on favorable adaptation. I haven't said that in a long time.
Say that
so
again.
I'll say it again. Intensity is the independent variable most often associated with maximizing your rate of return on favorable adaptation. So all that means is intensity gives you the good stuff. More often than not, harder work gives you more benefit. And sometimes there is you don't know why. And that's okay. So they would often talk about kind of this sort of black box methodology where, you've got this workout or this programming method that you follow, and then here's the result, and it works really well. And we kind of don't know what happens between, but we don't really care because I know when I do this, I get these results.
Gotcha.
So really it boils down to what results are you seeing? And the easiest way for me to kind of put it in a everyone can see it term is I think we've all been to your typical Globo gym, the 24-hour fitness or the big box gym. And you probably, if you guys are frequent there, you probably see the same people in there pretty frequently. If you pay attention to those around you, a lot of times you'll see people that do low intensity work see minimal results. So think about the person that you see on the recumbent bike for an hour and a half. Or the conversation you have with the guy in the office that's I just don't get it. I spend an hour and a half in the gym every day. I ride the recumbent bike for 30 minutes while I'm sipping my mocha frappa latte, and then I do some, bicep curls, and I rest 4 minutes between.
Magazine.
And and they're like, I just don't get it because I'm not seeing results, but I'm in there for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk to someone that's in like maybe an environment like this, like, well, that doesn't make sense because I worked out for like on average like 15 minutes a day for the past 5 days and the past 3 months, and like I've lost weight and I put on muscle, and it's like that's just the truth of it. It's just the hard facts.
I can speak from my own experience being, I joked earlier off camera about a 7-minute WOD being, you know, super ideal.
Right. They're way better than those long ones.
Right. And I joke about it because there are, for example, like Fran.
Yep.
Fran time can be, for you, what is that?
Like 2.5 minutes.
Okay. and it's 21...
15 and 9.
Yeah, thrusters.
So like a squat to overhead.
21 thrusters, 21 pull-ups. 15 thrusters, 15 pull-ups. 9 thrusters, 9 pull-ups. Yeah. So if anybody's ever done that
hard.
Is soul-crushing.
Yeah.
And then to do it fast in 2.5 minutes. And so it kind of blows some people's minds, the idea of being able to get a training stimulus out of such a short period of time. I think that is a perfect example of what intensity does for you. And
I get it. I was the same way. I was like, there's no way. I was so skeptical. But here's how you know you try.
Yeah.
Try for 6 weeks. See what happens.
That's very true. Like sometimes I don't know why when I eat this combination of foods, like I do really well.
Yep.
I recover faster. I don't have inflammation. And yet when I eat this batch of foods over here, I don't know metabolically exactly what it's doing. I just know the black box, the inputs, and then the results.
That's the thing is you don't need to know. People complicate it. They're like, well, why do you need to know scientifically why? And I was like, who cares why?
It just works.
Like, if it works, if you feel better, if like your health is increasing, if your fitness is increasing, like that works for you. Rock it.
So I have found like if in the past when I had a 9-to-5 job and I was really busy, I would do P90X videos right back in the day, a long time ago. I'd flip it on and what is it, Tony Horton or Tim
Tim Horton?
Tim Horton?
Or no, Tim Horton. That's
a donut.
Like Canada, like like the
Tony,
Timbits.
I think it's Tony Horton.
Tony Horton.
He'd be, buys and tries, and it was great, but it was like 45 minutes to an hour of this kind of drawn out, like workout. And I remember trying to warm up, do the workouts each day, feeling really tired afterward, recovery slow, and not getting that great of results. And then going to CrossFit gym or picking CrossFit WODs where they were 7 to 10 minute workouts. Yeah. I'd stretch or warm up for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'd do 7 minutes, and I was done in under like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got results out of that. I did it for like 6 months where I just picked 7-minute WODs.
Which isn't the best approach, but it is.
I'm just telling you, but I would
approach.
go as hard as I could in that 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And I got more results from that than I did the hour-long grinding routine.
Look at the size of that dog. Oh my gosh.
There's a Great Dane in the...
is a horse. Oh my gosh, that thing is huge. Sorry.
It weighs more than Chris.
Yeah. He's doing 7-minute workouts out there. That guy's lean and mean, dude. He was doing 7-minute workouts.
So I'm just saying, like, that intensity in a short period of time, I got tremendous results from that.
Yeah.
So one of my things is we all have limited time.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Some of us it's like, man, I can squeeze in a 30-minute a day or trying to justify it. I look at it like this. I'm going to climb the mountain up to the flag down there at Shepherd's Creek, right? And I think it's 2 miles 2 miles back.
Yep.
So I'm climbing to that flag no matter what.
Yep.
That allotted amount of time it takes to do that hike I've committed to. So why not in that window do it with the most intensity that I can to maximize the benefit of the time spent?
I agree. Especially if you're short on time. You know what I mean? Because it just works. Like intensity just works. And that's another good like visual for people to think of it. And it doesn't mean people don't work hard. It's just a different kind of work. But you think about like runners that you look at and just their body types. Mm-hmm. If you think about like someone that runs a marathon or 10Ks, imagine what they look like, right? They're like a human lung with sneakers. They're super skinny.
Right.
And then you think about like an 800-meter sprinter. They're like pretty
jacked.
Yeah. Right. They're pretty jacked. And then you think about like a 100-meter sprinter.
Yeah.
And they look like a running back, you know? So it might be more like helpful visually to be like, hey, maybe we choose to be kind of like that 800-meter guy because he's kind of the in-betweener, good at longer distances, good at shorter distances. But you just look at their body types, and it'll tell you a lot.
Right.
It tells you a whole lot. And it's not that
That's
everybody's
true.
like that.
Yeah.
Because we all have like genetic predispositions and things like that. But if you think about just the category of that might help people get their heads around like, hey, this is what it can do for you. Because if that 800-meter runner went and just ran marathons, he'd turn into the marathon runner. He'd look like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Mark Sisson, in his book, The Primal Blueprint, he talks about lifting heavy things, sprinting 2 or 3 days a week, and he really shied away from long, slow distance kind of stuff. He was a marathon runner, ultra marathon runner, long distance, and he was that running long with sneakers.
Yep.
And he felt like crap all the time, was exhausted. And he mentions seeing sprinters on the track field there and going, why are they so freaking jacked?
Yeah.
Laughing, hanging out. And all they do is like
Run
7 wind sprints and then
Yeah.
lift some weights and go home.
Right.
And he's like, and I am running like 8 hours straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
He was mentioning how he switched to that style, and that's what he does now, and how he feels so different. So all you got to do is look at the bodies. I think you're right.
Yeah, and I think it just like ultimately it lends itself better to more well-rounded fitness. You know, you doing 7 minutes workouts you're not gonna win a marathon.
Right.
But if your goal is not to win a marathon, then why are you running marathons?
Right. I think for my audience, we want to be able to hike all day, every day, with a pretty decent weight on our pack, at least 40 pounds, 50 pounds comfortably all day, every day, and hunt that way.
Yeah.
If needed. And often our packs are more like 20 or less.
Yeah.
But then there's the option where, okay, now I got to hike 100 pounds or 100 pounds plus multiple trips of that out, carrying, pack maybe 4 miles out, back in empty, 4 miles out, back in empty.
That's a lot of work, yeah.
Yeah, it's a couple of days effort often. I think that's the sort of fitness my audience is looking for.
Yeah. And like so the reality is like if you want to be good at hiking with a backpack all day, you got to touch it every once in a while. You know what I mean? Like you can't be fooled into thinking that like you just lifting weights will give you that. Because I'm sure everybody, once they get into like hunting season and once they start to do the pack work, there's a little bit of a rude awakening. You know what I mean? But the reality is too, though, I do know that if people do strength training, if they do things that create more well-rounded fitness, that they'll be better when they get there. You know what I mean? And it'll come faster. When you put the heavy pack on, you're going to be stronger. It's going to feel better. You're going to be more effective. And chances are, I would guess, just in a little bit of my experience, most of the hunting community is kind of on that side of the fence of like long and slow. Always with the pack because I want to be good at that. Gets real one-dimensional. And essentially that turns into the marathon runner. Mm-hmm. You know, instead of saying, hey, yes, that's important. We're not going to ditch that. We're not going to just abandon that because that's part of what we need to do. But maybe I do that twice a week. And maybe the other 4 days a week, I'm in the gym doing something that's like really productive, really efficient, gives me more time to do other things, maybe like actually live and go to work. Or maybe that's more time to shoot your bow. Or maybe that's more time to, you fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And it creates a better, more well-rounded hunter and athlete. It just does.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but like, I don't know where I thought this, but you ever watch golf? I don't really ever watch it.
I have, and I played before.
Yeah, but you know how like some golfers like look like the typical golfer, like they don't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And then other golfers are jacked.
Your Tiger Woods type. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a reason why those guys do that stuff. It makes them better at golf. Like anything. Whether you think golf, whether you think hunting, whether you think, it doesn't matter. The bigger, the broader the base of fitness you have, the better you're going to be.
Yeah. Well, I've been able to shoot my bow in a one-legged squat at 50 yards and hit the kill zone.
Yeah. I mean,
and of course you're going to need that skill in the wild.
Every day.
Sometimes. But it does feel good to be able to, I feel, back to the one-dimensional thing, being able to do one-legged squats, even under load, efficiently.
Yeah.
I feel like that is one of the major reasons why I haven't injured myself while backpacking with heavy backpacks.
Yeah. I mean, there's strength is an element of that. You know what I mean? And if you've got some muscle surrounding the joint, you're just going to be stronger. You're going to be safer.
There are times where I've lost my footing and had one leg, and it caught all my load as I'm falling, and I've been able to stay and then stand right back up because essentially I just went into a one-legged squat, which is full range of motion, using the muscle I've got. I didn't blow out my knee. I didn't lose an ACL, anything. You know, I just and then stood right back up and keep going. And a lot of people are never even in that position ever. They don't train ever in a position like that. And yet you find yourself there often in a backpack on a steep downhill. Yeah,
and strength isn't the end-all be-all, but I will tell you that if you're balanced and you're stronger, you're going to be better. You know, if like you're the strongest, if you're like the strongest guy in the world and you can deadlift 1,020 pounds, you're not going to be good at hiking with your backpack. But I can also tell you that if you can back squat 300 pounds and you can deadlift 400 pounds and you can hike your back, you know, you can do a ruck that's, you know, a 4-hour ruck.
You're pretty good.
You're going to be just fine. But if your back squat is 155 pounds and your deadlift is 200, you're probably not going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know, there's like, they would talk about, you know, back to the CrossFit thing, you fail at the margins of your experience.
Really smart.
Where else are you going to start to tap into or press against those margins than out in the woods? You know what I mean? There's so many variables that can happen. There's so many variables that can happen out there.
I want you to now to take a moment to speak to my wife, Suzanne. Okay?
Suzanne,
prepare yourself.
Get ready.
So we went hiking on Sunday with the family.
Yeah.
And it was a great little 2-mile hike up and then down. It was steep. And she goes to the gym like literally 5 or 6 days a week.
Yep.
And she's a high intensity gal. She gets in the gym and she just grinds. She's the ball of sweat on the. In fact, sometimes I think it's a little overkill.
Yeah.
You know, like over exercising. But regardless, it's it's what she likes to do.
Cool.
Well, we go hit the mountain, and I'm talking 100 yards into the hike. She's dying.
Yeah.
She's dying, Chris.
Yeah.
And then we get a mile in, 2 miles in, and she is shocked that this was that hard for her because she expected, because she's in the gym 5 or 6 days a week and she works her butt off, that when she hit the mountain, she would just eat it up.
Yeah.
And it did not happen.
Yeah.
And is it back to what you said earlier?
Yeah. You fail at the margins of your experience. You just do. So, like, that's a part of it. Like, that's a part of fitness is going for a hike, putting on a ruck. But I think most people are either on one side of the fence or the other, right? They're going to be like the long, slow all the time, like the cardio ninja with 10-pound dumbbells, million reps, you know?
Right.
Or they're like the meathead where they can bench 400, but they can't run a mile.
Like Brent.
They kind of fall into those categories, you know?
Right.
And like if that's how you train, that's what you get. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah, yeah.
It just means that, like, don't expect to, if you can bench 400 pounds and you never go for a long effort, don't expect to do good at it.
Okay.
If you go for a long effort and you never lift heavy, don't expect to be strong.
Yeah.
If you're cardio ninja, a million lateral raises, don't expect to be strong or good on a hike. You're going to be good at cardio ninja.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to throw out there was back to the intensity discussion. Okay. It is not fun to go into the pain cave, to push yourself. So I think a lot of people, they stop at the edge of intensity.
Sure.
How do you get people to break past that?
Yeah, it's relative, right? And that, like, intensity is a relative thing where depending on, like, our previous experiences and our athletic background, what feels really intense to someone else might not be that bad to me. Vice versa,
Okay.
So it is a bit of a relative thing, and it's a learned thing. So people don't need to expect to go in and just fully light their hair on fire. they need to be able to like kind of ease into it and figure that out. But I do think group environments really help to like push you and help give you a chance to not compete with others, but just enjoy the environment and work hard together. That's really helpful. And then keeping track of it, so like putting a clock on a workout and saying, okay, I did this workout today in 15 minutes and, maybe next time I'll try to beat it. It's as easy as that. Like that's the stepping stone there. And then over time, you can start to figure out, your levels of intensity. And part of intensity is pacing too. That's a part of it. It's not just turning into a pile of goo, but it's learning like how to pace myself so that I can be the most effective. Same thing with the ruck. You know what I mean? If you guys go out, if if you're packing an elk out, you're choosing a pace. You're not going to load up your pack and start running down the mountain. You know what I mean? It's like, so okay, this is a longer effort, heavier pack. Now, if you're just, have your regular pack on and it's 20 pounds and you're doing some kind of like stalk, you might have to move faster. But you're able to look at the distance and say, okay, I know I've got to move a mile right now and it's got to be a little bit faster. So it's paced. You're not going to start like a 100-meter sprint.
Right.
So that's part of intensity.
Right. You were mentioned the other day on a post on Instagram that you were doing a workout, and I believe it was a 225 clean.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Nar.
And you're not a big dude.
I'm not.
So 225 clean, and it was just a clean, power clean?
Yeah.
Squat clean?
Power clean. It's a beat down.
That is a heavy lift.
Yeah.
And it was for reps, and then it was, what else?
30 power cleans and 60 calorie bike.
Okay.
Assault bike.
Right. And you mentioned there's a certain time parameter you put around this.
Yeah.
And the idea is if you can't hit it in that time parameter, then you need to reduce the weight.
Totally.
Scale down the weight because the goal is intensity.
Yep.
And if you try to go, let's say, as prescribed with the 225, you're probably not going to hit the time limit, which means you're not maximizing that intensity effort.
Yep.
So your fitness isn't going to be you're not going to get the same reward. Yep. But you are building strength.
Totally.
Because you're slipping into like a different energy system, I guess, and you're just lifting now.
Yeah, slower, still breathing hard, but it's just slower. Intensity's lower.
And so sometimes you mentioned how on this particular day, and not very often, you decided to stick with the actual loading.
Yep.
And miss the time cap.
Yeah, you got it. Yep. And I think I missed it by like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And
before you turned 40, no, when
I was young,
when you were training for the games, this is not the sort of problem you would have. You'd be able to, your fitness level was usually higher.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're kind of dealing with that as well.
Yep.
Kind of adjusting to different priorities in life.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that. Before we get into that, though, just when do you decide that you're gonna forego intensity?
Rarely. I think it's like every once in a long while.
It's that important.
And then it's like I just know, for me, power cleans, like a heavy power clean, is just kind of like my kryptonite, And I thought I was doing it, and I was like, I know that I'm so much more comfortable and confident with 205. I just am. And I know that it's not going to make me nervous. I know I'm not going to have to think about it. I know I'm going to just be able to start to like go back to that zone. And I thought, you know what, for today, like more between my ears, like I'm going to stick with this and just like wrap my head around and get it done. And that is what bases that decision. But most of the time I'm able to kind of stick with, hey, this is like how long I want this to take me. So I need to use this weight and that's fine. I don't think of it as like a prescribed or not anymore. It's just like, hey, how long should this workout take me? And what weight do I need to use to accomplish that?
How have you been dealing with the changes in your priorities and your fitness? Because one thing I heard Jocko Willing talk about a while back. He was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and he was talking about his philosophy on fitness. Sure. And he's big into rolling and jiu-jitsu. That's part of his. That's what he loves to do. And But in addition to that, he does strength training.
Yep.
And he talked about hitting a certain point on deadlifts, squats, things like that, where, max push-ups, where he hits kind of a plateau. And if he wants to blow past that plateau, he's got to put in a lot of effort, time, energy. And he asked himself, why do I need to be able to back squat this much?
Yeah.
Like more than this? Why do I need to deadlift more than this? And instead of trying to break past those barriers, he just kind of rides those and then does other things instead.
Totally.
Is that kind of where you're at too, or
100%? And I think that that's like, truthfully, I think most people probably aren't there. If they haven't, if they haven't had much of a strength training background, they're not going to bump into that wall for a long time. But for someone that's been lifting for a long time, I started lifting when I was 13. And for people that have that background, he's right. In order to break through those barriers, you have to put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of emphasis into doing that. And then becomes a question of why? Really, ultimately, it's my ego. You know what I mean? It's nice to feel but it's also nice to feel progress, your hard work is doing something. But at the same time, if I can back squat 350 pounds and I can deadlift 405, I'm fine. I don't need to do more than that. When I go ride my dirt bike and if I need to pick it up, it's 220 pounds. If I can deadlift almost twice that, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it's been a big shift for me like that as well. And that's very much what I do. I very much just try to kind of hang on to some specific numbers, strength-wise.
Yeah.
And then I just have my fitness support the lifestyle that I want to live outside the gym.
So you've had to check your ego, huh?
Oh, yeah. I am no longer a games athlete. And it's nice. Yeah. It's like everything. All those guys out there, their time's coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't do that forever. It's like anybody. NFL player, doesn't matter. That time is ticking, bro.
It is. I still feel great.
Yeah.
I feel great for almost 45.
And that's the thing is it's because your training supports your lifestyle.
So we're going to wrap this podcast up. Look for another one here in the next few days. We're going to get into kind of diet, avoiding inflammation, fueling the body, helping you recover more quickly, giving you the protein you need. I want to get into kind of what you're doing that way. So look for that, folks. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. As always, stay gritty.